Hello YouTube, a wise child here. I have a side-by-side review I'm looking forward to giving you about two great lightweight stoves by Esbit. I'll give you my honest experience with both of them, tell you a little bit about their specifications, and have a little bit of side-by-sides comparison. So let's begin. The first stove I'll be talking about is the Esbit Folding Pocket Stove. As you can probably tell, I've gotten some really good use out of this little stove, and the overall size is slightly larger than that of a deck of cards. For those that aren't familiar, this stove works by folding the stove open to one of two settings. Doing this elevates the stove such that airflow can flow through the bottom and creates a platform on top for where you can place your pot or pan. This stove runs off of solid half-ounce fuel tablets, which are easy to light and have an advertised burn time of roughly 12 minutes at 1300 degrees Fahrenheit. According to the packaging, it will boil 16 ounces of water in about 8 minutes. And if you don't want to use it for the stove, these fuel tablets also make for great fire starters. The second stove I'll be talking about is the Esbit Brass Alcohol Stove. As the name implies, this system works by filling the brass stove with an alcohol fuel source. Unlike the folding stove, this system requires a separate stand to create a cooking platform. The system that's being displayed now is the Esbit 5-piece lightweight cook set with brass alcohol stove. Link in the description below. A couple of features that I like about this stove is how the stove is threaded at the top and comes with a cap with a rubber O-ring. This allows me to store fuel within the stove itself, and I'm able to reuse any unburnt fuel without having to transfer it to a different container. Also, it comes with an adjustable cover, which is placed over the flame. This allows you to moderate the cooking temperature, giving you greater flexibility to, say, simmer a pot of rice, instead of having the stove be on full power like it is always at with the Esbit folding stove. Alright, so let's put these stoves side by side and see how they perform compared to each other. For this test, we'll see how long it takes each system to boil 16 ounces of water. I'm conducting this experiment in the greater Boston area, which sits just slightly above sea level, so I expect the water to boil at this elevation at about 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's get started. I'll start with the Esbit folding stove with solid fuel tablets. I put 16 ounces of room temperature water into my pot with a lid, and then I measured the temperature every 30 seconds until the water came to a rolling boil. I then did the same thing with the alcohol stove, after giving it some time to warm up to allow for the flames to properly flow through the air vents. For this test, I'm using the yellow heat as a fuel source. So how do we do? Starting with the folding stove, we began with 16 ounces of water at 66 degrees Fahrenheit. At the 2-minute mark, the water had heated to 116 degrees. Within 4 minutes, it was at 160 degrees. And at around the 5-minute mark, I began to hear sounds like the water was boiling. At the 7-minute mark, the temperature had reached 211 degrees and the water was at a rolling boil. In comparison, the alcohol stove got off to a slow start, which was actually a surprise for me. We began with 16 ounces of water at 65 degrees. After 2 minutes, the alcohol stove had heated the water to 102 degrees. After 4, the temperature was 140 degrees. And it didn't start to hear the sounds of water boiling until about 6 minutes and 30 seconds in, which was about 90 seconds slower than the folding stove. It actually took the alcohol stove 8 minutes and 18 seconds to bring the water to a rolling boil at 211 degrees, which is about 78 seconds slower than the folding stove. Now, before we call it a slam dunk for the folding stove, let's talk about a couple other things you should consider before purchasing one of these stoves. First is the cost of fuel. The solid fuel tablets are relatively expensive. A 12-pack is currently selling on Amazon for about $10. This equates to roughly 83 cents per half ounce of fuel. Now, in comparison, you can get a 12-ounce bottle of yellow heat for about $6.50. This equates to roughly only 27 cents per half ounce of fuel, which is about 67% cheaper than the solid fuel tablets. And while 50-something cents might not seem like much to some of you, if you're using the stove for multiple people or multiple meals, the fuel cost does add up. This is actually the main reason why I began looking for other stoves in the first place a while back. In terms of weight, without the fuel, the folding stove is slightly lighter, coming in at 90 grams compared to 95 grams for the alcohol stove. And as I mentioned before, with this extra weight, you do get a little bit more temperature control with the alcohol stove. This is a feature I didn't realize I missed until I had it. Now, depending on how you're going to use these stoves, this may be immaterial to you. Lastly, in terms of upfront costs, the Esbit stove is going to put you back about $20 for just the stove. But keep in mind, you'll still need something to rest your pot on. Now, where the folding stove can be found anywhere used for about $3 to about $12, and that comes with about a dozen solid fuel tablets. So if you're cooking simple or for just yourself and want something cheap and easy, I do think the folding stove is a great option. The alcohol stove is a little pricey in terms of upfront cost in my opinion, but the ability to have significantly longer cook times at a lower price point is worth the trade-off for me when I'm camping with other people, even with the slower burn time. So there you have it folks, my honest review of two Esbit stoves. If you like this video and appreciate the quantitative content, you'd be doing me a huge favor if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel. I try to put out objective content that can help those of you out there trying to make a purchase decision with your hard-earned money. As always, thanks for watching and have a nice day.